I've been a good headline writer so as long as I've been in the business. I mean, I have colleagues who are great editors and good headline writers, but sometimes they'll say, "How do you come up with so many so quick?" And it's just a natural knack I've had throughout my career. The first time I entered a headline contest, I won both first and second place. That was back in 1984 at the Daily Breeze in Torrance, California. And that's where I met Jeff Rowe. Um, so I've always been able to come up with headlines fairly quick, even on deadlines. Sometimes they come easier, sometimes they come harder. Sometimes it's like squeezing a rock, and other times it just flows right onto the page. Um, People ask me what makes a good headline. Well, there are a lot of factors, but sometimes it comes down to one simple premise that it has to, quote, work. Sometimes you'll get a headline that's close to the mark, but doesn't quite do it. And that's why it's nice to be surrounded by good colleagues who could add their 2 cents and say, a lot of times I'll say to my colleagues, does this work? Does that work? And most of the time it does, but sometimes they'll say, why don't we try this angle or try this word? Headlines, a good headline will have a rhythm to it. Sometimes we'll have a good idea and a good headline, but if there's a certain word you can change, conjunction or an article, and make it even more rhythmic. The best headlines not only have some draw you in by clever wordplay, but they have to and be accurate, but they also have to kind of have a good rhythm that is easy on the eyes. Um, I just recently, a few weeks ago, got an email from the American Copyeditor Society saying that I'd won my third national first place award. And this one's especially gratifying because not only does it come late in my career, but it used to be that they would award first, second, third, and honorable mention. And I've won a lot of seconds and thirds and honorable mentions, but this is one now they just give a first place only. So it's basically competing against the entire country, and they only give out one award. And this year I won that again, so it's my third one. The last one came 10 years ago, 2015, and then in 2011 I also won. And then back in 2000, when I was at the Seattle Times, I got first place in feature headlines, and that was from the American Association of Sunday Feature Editors. So my walls are covered with headline awards, and sometimes I think, how did I get all those? And I'm thinking, well, I guess again, it's just that knack I've had for it. I mean, I'm a good editor and a good grammarian and speller and writer and all that, but the headlines for me come pretty easily. But again, it's not to say there are times when I struggle and I have to consult someone else, or what I'll do, I'll get up from my desk and walk around and kind of cogitate and go get a glass of water or something, or take a long break. And eventually everything usually comes to me. And if it doesn't, I've got great colleagues who could substitute something or tweak it somehow and make it work. Bottom line, it's not a competition among us. We just want to get what's best on the page. It's always what's most important, just get the best headline. I've been a headline judge a lot in the past too, and sometimes I've noticed that some headline writers, usually they're younger, I think they try too hard to get certain puns or turns of phrase or in, and sometimes they don't work. I mean, there's a lot of things that are so cliched and hackneyed that you really want to retire them for all time. At the LA Times, they have kind of a joke that we never want to see the headline "'Tis the season" again in any way, shape, or form, unless you can take something that's kind of trite and been around a long time. If you can maybe twist it a bit or put a new spin on it, then that can always work. Um, the range of headlines I've done, they pretty much cover everything as far as the topic. I mean, the weather, human interest, the pets, so many different subjects. And of course, you want to have the headline be not only accurate, but tasteful. You don't want to have anything that's in bad taste or that impugns anybody or is insensitive. I once had a good headline lined up for I can't remember exactly what it was about. It was a family, I think a Asian family who ran I think it was a laundromat or something, and had a great headline all teed up. But then some midway through the story, I noticed that there was a suicide in the family. So I thought, okay, anytime there's something sad or negative or otherwise unsettling, you don't want to reflect that in any way in the headline. So you got to make sure you have your taste meter on and be sensitive. And again, that's part of what goes into making a headline work. It has to be accurate. It has to, of course, fit the space, but it has to also be sensitive and again, if possible, have a combination of words that draw the reader in. And some headlines come very quickly to me, and there could be one that comes quickly or a whole bunch. Other times, it'll be again, I have to really think about it a lot. And there have been times, again, I told you I get up and I walk around and think about it. Sometimes I'll go to a thesaurus or a dictionary and look up a word that might be germane to the topic. And sometimes a word will pop. I'll go, okay, there's a phrase with that word, or sometimes old sayings or aphorisms, or um, I basically have a blue sky approach. I mean, I just pretty much open the floodgates and let everything out there in the ether try to filter down through me. So nothing's off the table at first. And sometimes it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks the best. And I wish I could share with or show you the actual headlines here. I mean, I have my most recent ones here. Maybe I'll go back 10 years to the one that won the first place in oh, by the way, I think we also just not only did I win the national first place, but our staff, the LA Times, won the staff headlining writing award. I have a lot of good colleagues. I have a former colleague who left the paper a while back saying we've always had a deep bench. So not only have I won quite a few awards, but so have a lot of my colleagues too. So it's been nice being surrounded by fellow, I joke and they call it head cases without drugs or alcohol, you know. So 10 years ago, I'll read the five that won. And this was a year that I knew that they were good. Sometimes I will, what I do, I'll submit a whole bunch of headlines to my supervisor, like 10 to 12, maybe even 20 or so, and we'll winnow them down to 10 or so. And then she or he will submit a final seven or so to the ACES judges. And there are years when I think, oh, this is a can't miss entry. I mean, I have some really, really good ones here. And sometimes I've had those and they did not win, either staff or individual. And in this case here, 10 years ago, they're all good, but I didn't think they were that strong, but they ended up winning first place. And so that's always gratifying. So this batch, there was five of them. I'll just read them to you. And again, with headlines, sometimes you'll have just a main headline and no deck. A deck is an explanatory headline that amplifies or supports what you've got in the main headline. And having a head and deck both is really great because a deck can obviously elaborate and support the main head. If you have just a main head, making that as clever and inviting as you can is a challenge. And a lot of times I've done that, but it's always nice to have the two heads together, which is more some stuff for the reader to absorb. So back in 2015, one of my headlines was Chargers fan is a lightning rod. Dan Jerzinski, aka Boltman, is working overtime to keep the team in San Diego. So there I use the team name and then the Charger, lightning, you got that electricity type of angle. A lot of times you have things that are kind of like an allusion or a reference to a term, a phrase, a historical event. I had another one that was simple. It just says, hello, they're finding a calling in the Philippines. Young workers take better paying jobs at call centers used by American companies. Again, you don't always need a pun or a clever wordplay to make a head work. It could be just a phrase that integrates phrases that aren't puns so much, but just a common type of thought that has been used by people. Again, you don't want to overdo too many puns. You don't want to backload it with too many with wordplay because it's almost like with adjectives in the story. You don't want too many intensifiers in a sentence. You know, I think it was I don't know, it was Mark Twain or somebody saying too many adjectives will kill the sentence. You know, it can get to be too much, and you don't want puns that are really groaners that are just really obviously a stretch. And that's again where I sometimes I'll pass it by a colleague and see what they think. Okay, another one I had here was off the laugh track. Yes, they're serious. Comedy is no longer central to TV networks' prime time programming. Again, just a short, pithy one, two. And sometimes the headline will be all caps, which makes it even harder to do because of space constraints, of course, and you don't have that many words. So if you can get a good headline in just a few words, that's always good. And another one I did was at next door bars, distinct countercultures. Las Palomas and East Side love, the Mexicano and the chipster reflect the shifting Boyle Heights. So I use the phrase counterculture, which has its own, thing about, think about 60s and hippies and all that. But in this case, it's counterculture, as in people sitting at a bar having a drink or something. So you have phrases that can do double duty. They can mean one thing in one context and then something else in another one. This is my favorite one from that particular year, and I still cited, people still remember it. It was about a group down in downtown LA, a bunch of ukulele players trying to set a world record for most ukulele players in one spot at one time. And they just fell short of setting a record. So my headline was, and this is one that it just came to me and it uses a rhyming type thing. It says, better pluck next time. ULA Ukulele Ensemble again falls short of Guinness record. So some of them just really they come to me. I say I'll put that down and I hope it fits. There are cases where a good headline won't fit, and if it's close, you'll just ask the page designer maybe to squeeze it a pipe or two or just a little bit to get it in, and that's always nice having their help in that way. And finally, in this entry from 2015, I had one that said DTLA, all caps, DTLA, a strong initial impression. The hashtag friendly abbreviation, now a part of LA's lexicon, distills the ethos of an emerging downtown. And so good. That was a good strong entry. I didn't think it was going to win first place, and it did, which is gratifying. And when I won that second one, I thought, okay, that's it. I didn't really expect to win again. And in the intervening 10 years, I've been part of some honorable mentions, and I think I had a second or third a few times. And I think the time I finished second, it was to a former colleague who's now at the New York Times, and I was very happy for her. She's another great headline writer. She won first, and I won second. And this one this year again, it's almost like a late career Oscar or late, after Cy Young Award as an aging pitcher or something. It's like, okay, I feel complete now, and I'm running out of wall room for awards, so I have enough. I've done well, and I keep submitting them every year, and I'm usually in the mix. But it's just a gift I've had, and I'm very gratified for it. And I'll keep doing it as long as I'm in the biz. I'll probably go a few more years and then do something else, but. Um, Anyone have any questions or can I elaborate on anything else I've said? Or maybe I'm trying to think any more tips I can give. I mean, headline writing, you can get better at it. When I first started 45 plus years ago, my first two headline awards, I don't even remember what they were. They were with the Daily Breeze and Torrance, and I don't even remember what they were, but I've looked back at some of my previous headlines from way back when I was younger, and they were good. But now I look back and think, oh, that was a little bit, maybe a little bit of a stretch, or maybe trying too hard. Maybe the pun was a little bit forced, but they all were good in their own right. But I've gotten better over the years. I've just been able to hone the craft, and so it's been really fun. So, any questions or comments?
Dave, Jeff here.
Hey, Jeff.
Um, Take them through uh, kind of your thought process, if you will, and then the tools you bring to bear, the language tools that you bring to bear, and how you decide which ones to use in any particular given head.
Well, as I said earlier, I kind of just opened the mental floodgates as far as I kind of free associate, whatever the topic is, I try to relate things that are related to that topic. And that can mean phrases, historical antecedents. Sometimes I'll use a historical reference and I wonder sometimes, will readers get this? And I think, well, yeah, the more educated will. And if I run it by my colleagues and they get it, I think, okay, that's good. That's a good floodgate there to get through. Um, but then I think, well, how many references or historical type of ties will people understand in a headline? I'll give an example of a cultural thing here. I have one of the reading ones from this year was about a nudist who opened a bookstore in San Francisco. And San Francisco's had kind of problems with the economy up there. They've had a lot of things have shut down and such. So I thought, okay, here's a cultural reference. Here's a book reference. The main headline was "The Naked and the Red." He's hoping so, and that's a play on "The Naked and the Dead," which is a Norman Mailer novel from several years ago. And then my deck, and you see, this is here where a good deck can then buttress the main head. Amid San Francisco's retail crisis, a nudist thinks this idea could sell banned books and unclothed clerks. So you tie all of it in together. And again, having a deck can really help when you have a headline that's good, but people might not understand it without the deck. But I try to use, literary references. I'll sometimes, as I said, go to the dictionary, go to a thesaurus. Sometimes I'll even Google certain terms or phrases and see what pops up. And that can give me, again, I just do a kind of a blue sky, all one size fits all, everything's on the table. As far as what to put down on it for a headline. And most of the time it comes fairly easy, but sometimes I have to really cogitate for a while. And sometimes, if it's a real, especially on a deadline, if I can't come up with something that's really a zinger, I'll just say, get something that works, that's good, that's solid, that's serviceable. I had a colleague who once said it's nice to hit a home run every time, and sometimes you just need a strong double or a good triple, and that'll bring it home. So, um, did that help, Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's hard to say exactly why I'm able to get so many headlines in a relatively quick amount of time. As I said, I've had some colleagues who just they can't write a real good headline to save their life, and that's just, it's just like things that involve numbers or math, I defer because I hate numbers and hate math, and so that's not my strong point. We all have our strong points, and mine is wordplay and headline writing, but we all have our talents. And on our desk, we're all pretty strong with everything. But there are some who just say they'll come to me and say, "Can you doctor this headline or kind of ramp it up a bit?" So in that way, they'll ask me sometimes, "Dave, can you take a crack at this?" And I've done them in all the different categories. My mainly work, I call it the metro section, LA, California, West Coast, but I also do stuff for national stories, foreign stories, business stories, feature stories. At the Seattle Times, I mostly did feature headlines. So that's obviously a playground for good stuff. There's always a lot of opportunity for good headlines. And sports too has an opportunity for good headlines. But even there, you got to be aware of leery of cliches because there's so many cliches out there, not only for news but for sports. And when I worked on Olympics in the past, the 2010, 2012 Olympics, and I think 2016. It was like a toy store for headlines. There were a lot of really great opportunities there, and sometimes they were just a couple word headlines, like when Canada won a gold medal in hockey a few years back. I think it was 2010 in Vancouver. It was the first time they'd won the gold medal in hockey in years. So my big two-word headline was Maple Relief, and so the play on Maple Leaf. And so then I had a deck to explain. And another one in that year, the U.S. Four-man bobsled team won their first gold medal in bobsled in years and years. And so my headline, and they upset some other teams that are very strong in bobsled. And my headline was Giant Slayers, Sleigher, a play on Slayer, Slayer. So sometimes you get words that are like a homonym type thing. And if it works, it works. You get it on there and hope it fits. And most of the time it has.
One other question, is there a headline that got away? One that you really liked that a supervisor said, no, no, this one won't go?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier there was one that had a sad fact in the story about a suicide in the family, and I had a real good headline, but I thought, I just gotta go what they call go more straight. Don't go with the cleverness as much. I mean, most headlines you want to be quote clever, but you don't want to be clever by half. You don't want to strain or work too hard to make it work or do something that might be inappropriate. Again, it's just that it's a delicate dance there. You got to make sure that things have the taste and sensitivity. I can't remember offhand what the ones that got away. There are a few that just maybe went a little too far, and I'll have a colleague who'll say, "No, that's almost there," but it just has to be spot on. It can't be almost. It has to be fully. It has to fully work. And what works is kind of a inexact science, really, in a way, because unlike numbers, words can be, I'm not gonna say subjective, but there's nuance and gradation, and there's not one size that fits all. You have to get what on there what's most appropriate and which again fulfills all the boxes as far as taste, sensitivity, accuracy. Um, I had another one recently that had an allusion to Pearl Harbor, and I wish I had it right here on me, but I don't. But maybe I'll think about it. And then some are the wordplay is quite obvious. I'll read the rest of the ones that won this year, the five that just got the award. I had one about LA has a lot of ruptured sidewalks caused by tree roots or such. And so my main headline was, and the stories about how LA's has such a backlog that they're not able to repair a lot of them. So my main headline was hardly a crack response to LA's ruptured sidewalks. Service call backlog is at 50,000 with no long-term fix-it plan. Sometimes the main head has the main cleverness, and then the deck has just a more straightforward explanation. If you can get cleverness in both head and deck, that's always great. This one about the backlog is kind of a straight thing, but it supports fully supports the main head. And here's one too. This was a sports one. It's about how at the Clippers' new arena in LA called Intuit Dome, there's a state bill that would allow uh, members of a private suite to be served alcohol later into the night after the game. And this is the LA Clippers basketball team. So my main head was some late shots at the Clippers arena, question mark, shots as in basketball and as in a drink. State bill would allow members of private suites to be served alcohol until 4 a.m. So you got the double word there, shots as in basketball shots and shots as in alcohol drinks. And then I had one say what? In South Korea, a different sort of term limits. And then the deck. The government is fighting to keep English, quote, loanwords from diluting the language. In other words, they're worried about English infiltrating Korean too much and kind of watering down the native tongue there. So it's a term limit, which again works on two levels. You got terms as in words and terms as in term limits. You know, the usual use of that term related to politics. And here's one that's really sometimes I can get one that really can be kind of really rhythmic, really lyrical, and really kind of almost has a beauty to it. And I got a lot of compliments on this one. This is about people who lost homes in those bad fires in January in Palisades and Altadena, where we used to live, by the way, near there, Pasadena. Um, this is about a Palisades Symphony playing a concert to those who lost their homes. So the main headline was, out of the embers, they found solace in the timbers, timbers as in music. Palisades Symphony dedicates concert to those who lost homes. So again, that kind of lyrical, kind of a little bit of a beauty with the rhythm. And that was one I really liked, and the judges liked that one. So I knew I had a good batch this year, but I wasn't counting on winning again. I just kind of said, okay, here are my heads, whatever. And it came through again, so that's nice, and feel very gratified. Anybody else out there struggle with headlines?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Daniel?
Yes, yes.
Hi,
Hi, this is my first time, so please forgive me if I do anything wrong. I
you're good. Hmm.
uh, what exactly do you mean by headlines? Because there's so many different types.
Headlines, well, for me, it's I work mostly on the print edition at the LA Times, but I do stuff for the website too. And here's something I didn't mention before. Pretty much all of my winning headlines have been ones that have been in the print product because the print gives you more room. It's you have heads and decks more. The website has heads, but the powers that be want heads there that are they can be clever, but they don't want as much wordplay or puns or turns of phrase or such. They're a little bit more straightforward. So sometimes I'll work on a story that has a headline that's already come over from a frontline editor, a backfielder, a line editor, and it'll be fine. It'll be straightforward. And oftentimes we'll carry that forward, straightforward to the paper. Again, stories about war and famine and all kinds of serious crime, really, the bad stuff, the bad news out there. We don't go for the clever or the wordplay or the puns in those. I mean, all the ones I've won awards for have an element that lends themselves to a clever wordplay type head. You don't want stuff that's flip or light in serious topics. Once in a while, maybe you can, but even on those, you can have a headline that can be poignant. It doesn't have to be clever, but it can be poignant relating to a bad topic, whether it's again crime or. Here's an example of one that was crime. It wasn't a grim crime. Wasn't murder mayhem, but a few years back there was a bunch of criminals who were stealing stuff from celebrities' homes in LA. And I came up with the phrase that I guess I was the first to. I didn't know if I was, but it was nice. The term bling ring. So go and they'd steal mementos and jewelry, valuables from celebrities' homes. So I came up with bling ring, and people said, "Dave, that's new, great, blah blah." I got a lot of kudos for that. It didn't sound that original to me. I thought I'm sure someone else out there thought of that, but maybe not. And so that's a case where it was a serious story, but I put a little twist on it and it was okay. It was appropriate. It wasn't again, insensitive or flip or anything, so. But headlines are just the way, they're the gateway to the story. You look at that and you might go, okay, that looks interesting, or maybe not, depends on what you're looking for, what you want to read. It can be, again, highly subjective what readers look for. And so headlines are the gateway to the story, whether it's online or in print.
What about like a special needs or a special project that's historical?
I've done some special projects, and a lot of times they will have an overriding big main head that will carry over through several days. Um, and usually those are done in collaboration with other editors. Uh, Years ago, there was just the main headline for it was a series about how oceans have been degraded through the years, and the main headline for the whole series was Altered Oceans. And I think it won a Pulitzer actually for explanatory reporting. So sometimes you'll have what they call label head that carries over for several segments or several installments of a story. And the special sections can take their own special treatment. They'll often have a big head, and then each day you'll have a new deck head depending on what the topic that day is. So anyways, it's all been very fun, and I've had a knack at it, and I feel blessed to have the ability. And they often give you a cash award, which is nice. Of course, that's even dwindled. You know, newspapers have shrunk. The LA Times used to have an in-house headline competition, and I won three of those pretty much right off the bat. I got to the LA Times in 2004, and I won three of the in-house ones in the first 5 years I was at the paper. But due to the shrinking economy and newspapers in general, they don't have those editorial in-house contests anymore, and that's fine, just the way it is. And it's the reality of today's newspaper world. And so the financial pecuniary angle was nice, but again, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not in journalism for the money. It's just love words, and so it's been very fulfilling.
Oh, a special collaboration is definitely something that I would love to get your info on.
What was that now about collaborating?
A special collaboration
What about who with my colleagues?
with you or your colleagues, if possible.
Well, do you want to? You're saying you want to collaborate?
Yes, if it's possible, please. Is there any? I never. This is my first time doing this. How would I go about of emailing you my email address so we can correspond through email?
That'd be fine. Yeah, you can even reach me at my work email, LA Times. It's david.bowman@latimes.com. You can send me an email. I'll get back to you. I'm off today.
Okay.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm off this whole week, but sometime you can reach me if you like.
Okay.
Student,
Uh,
are you a student? Are you working somewhere? Or what's your story?
no, I'm disabled.
Oh, okay, okay, gotcha. Yeah, we can talk more outside of this forum here. That'd be great.
Uh, can you take my email address if possible?
You want to give it right now, or you can email me again at the paper?
Yeah, I'll email. Well, if I emailed you right now, it would be easier because I know how to use my phone.
Well, you want to email me and I'll go on later and get it and then get back to you today. I can't do it right now.
David
Yeah.
Bowman.
Yeah, Daniel, I put it in
I
the.
got it. I got it. I got it.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Daniel, for your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, David, do you have a go-to person that you're like, is this headline too far, or do you think it's pretty good?
I have most of my colleagues are good sounding boards. I'd say some better than others. All the veterans who've been there a long time, like I have. We have a crew of us who've been in the business a long time. I think I might be the senior one in our among them. Then we have some youngsters who are coming up, and some of them are good. And the other day, I complimented a young woman who did a good headline. Again, not so much a wordplay thing, but just the right words that had a nice rhythm. They had a nice lilt to them. They encapsulated the story well. But I have a few. My main one of my supervisors, Don Penner. He's been there a long time. He's a very good sounding board, and I've got there's a few others who left the paper who are really good because one of my colleagues was named Steve Eames, and he's won three National Aces Awards, so he was good, but he left the paper. But most of the people I've worked with are good. Like I say, does this work? They all have a good sense, especially the ones who are so-called slot editors who read behind the so-called rim editors, the ones who are reading the stories and then send them over to the people to then backfill them and clear them for to be published. It's a good crew to ask about. And sometimes also I'll be perusing the pages and look at headlines that others have done, and most of the time they're fine. But if I see a way to improve it even slightly, sometimes it's a simple thing as having the word on instead of in, or add instead of, or just simple little conjunctions or articles or whatever. But again, the rhythm, or maybe even transposing a couple clauses. One part of the clause could be better at the top of the head instead of the bottom. So we do that kind of, it's like microsurgery on the words. And the later it gets in the ship, it's harder to do, but sometimes we're just up until the last minute, we're just tweaking and tinkering and making sure we get the right. And you don't want to have something we call an echo. If you have a word in the headline, you don't want to have the same word repeated in the deck. And sometimes under deadline pressure, we'll inadvertently do that. And then usually I'll catch that myself if I do, but sometimes somebody will say, or I'll say, oh, there's that word twice. Let's do a new word for either the head or the deck. And likewise, on a page, you don't want to have the same heads or heads that have the same words in them. You can help it. These days, with a certain president, it's hard to avoid his name in more than one headline because he's all over the place. But even then, we'll say president or administration or something. I think one of the biggest limits in headline writing, of course, can be space. Sometimes you'll have one column and you don't have much room. And that's a case where you got to get words that are obviously shorter and make them fit. And sometimes if it's close, you can have the page designer squeeze them slightly. But it's always nice to have a commodious amount of space. Sometimes you'll get almost too much space and you have to almost kind of fill the space. But that's always a better challenge than not having enough room at all, where you have to shoehorn it in somehow. So again, we have a good crew, a lot of good go-to people, and that's always nice to know that someone's got your back at all times. By the way, if I made sense on everything, I mean, this has been fun to chat or to yammer on and on. Floor is yours.
Okay, Dave, I got another one then. I'm curious, and I guess I didn't realize that the demands on the web were more straightforward. And is that because the research or the belief is that people don't have time to savor kind of a clever wordplay, that they just want to know right away in a skim
I think
what the story's about?
I think that's partly it. And another thing is it's so-called you've heard of the term SEO, which means I think search engine optimization, meaning what people click on. What will be the words that most people will be most apt or most prone to click on. So there's that whole thing about what will get the so-called clicks. And I'm thinking, well, you think you can be able to do that with cleverness, and it doesn't have to be just so straightforward. But I think they really always want to get the real germane words in there, and sometimes I guess that mitigates against the cleverness thing. But there have been good headlines on the web, and you look at the website. Have you found? I don't think you'll find any of my clever ones on there. The ones I all just mentioned to you that I won with. I don't think any of those had the clever part. The ones I read here, they all had something else. And then for print, I cobbled and crafted the clever things. But I think it's a combination of time, skimming. Like you said, they're not really gonna want to sit there and try to, online at least, to figure out stuff or to dive in or digest a clever head. And again, it's a SEO thing, getting stuff that gets the clicks out there, the whole internet angle. So um, to have strong presence in both is good. I mean, I don't know if it's the same way in other papers. The New York Times, their web is really strong, but they have good print heads. And they, admittedly, my colleague who went to the New York Times, Jeff Enu or Wendy Fawthrop, and I have another colleague who went there, Rich Nelson. They both said the headline restrictions there are more stringent than they are at the LA Times. They, I think, downplay the cleverness and the wordplay and the puns more, but they'll have good headlines too. And again, they have tight space requirements. They not only have the one column, but sometimes they do kind of a stair step. I can't explain it really, but the New York Times has had a kind of an odd typographical presence for years. They've got their own unique style there in every facet, really, as far as what they use in type or in print. They have some of their style things like using Mr. and Mrs. and they're kind of old fashioned still and fusty. You know, they're called the old gray lady for a reason, I think. But anyway, did that help, Jeff?
Yeah, but it led to one more question. Sorry. So I'm sort of curious now this of sort of how the emergence of style, I guess, because I'm thinking of the New York Post as an example of where clearly the headline styles there are considerably different than any place else, or at least I'm thinking, it seems to me now in my reading of them. But it, what what would you say is the maybe are there emerging trends? Two-part question. Are there emerging trends kind of in headline writing? And number two, um, how do you determine what the style is for the website, the publication that you're working on?
Well, talking about the Post, they're a famous paper for they're a tabloid, and the New York papers, them and the Daily News, they often come up with really clever headlines, and but almost to a point where they can be kind of the in your face and kind of rude and almost I'd say tasteless sometimes. New York Post has wrote years ago was probably the most famous headline ever, or one of them. You probably all heard it. It was a headless body in topless bar. And the guy who wrote that said he actually did do research and called the bar to make sure that crime actually occurred. And it's an awful crime and it's grim and dire, but he did that funny headline. I wouldn't, I mean, New York Post has its own rules, obviously, and they do that kind of stuff. I think they're the ones who also had the famous one, Gerald Ford denying funding to New York City and it said Ford to New York, drop dead. Now that's not really tasteless or anything, but they've got the one page, the tabloid cover, and they always do the pithy, 2 or 3 word headlines. And even if I could do something like that, the LA Times, I would never write something like that headless body topless bar. But again, that's the LA Times, it's not the New York Post. Those type of headlines in the Post and the Daily News, I think they want to grab the subway commuter or whatever. I'm not sure how they do it on their websites. I haven't really ever looked at their websites, to be honest. And so, um, as far as style itself, you know, when I've judged aces through the years and looked at other winning headlines, whether they're small papers or large ones, you see clever stuff. And but then on the other hand, sometimes you'll see stuff that's again trying too hard and doesn't quite do it. You got to really avoid the cliches, as I said, like Tidbit Season or Dog Day Afternoon. There's all kinds of stuff that just phrases again, unless you can put a whole new twist on it. Over the years, there's been so many weather stories. It's like, what do you say now? Or fire stories, or any stories with dogs or cats. There's so many subjects that seems to have been plowed under, and there's not much left to say. But a victory for me often is to say something new with a weather story. Like one that I really liked was a few years ago down there in LA. They had a streak of record hot days, and it seems like it's always hot down there now. It's one reason I don't miss living there anymore. Every day seems to be getting hotter. But my headline was summer calendar fills. Let me see. Oh, summer heat fills the calendar with Fridays, FRY days instead of FRI. So a pun there that worked. And I remember one of the editors on duty that night said, "Good one, Dave, for a weather story, way to nail it." And that happened. You get a story that's kind of mundane and ho hum, but if you can get a good headline on it, make it people intrigued to read it, all the better. So, Jeff, I hope I answered a little bit of that.
Yep.
Okay. It's an interesting craft, headline writing. I mean, it just I have a ability for it, and I'm blessed. And but some heads are easier than others, and some take a lot of work to get, and then others zip get it quick. And one of my favorites from years ago was one that was about Forest Lawn marking their 100th anniversary. It's the famous cemetery in LA there, and my headline was Forest Lawn at 100. The rest is history. And there's a case where people said, okay, good way to, no really pun there, but it is in a way, rest as in rest in peace. And then, the phrase the rest is history. So when you get those type of confluences, convergences of ideas, it's really nice. And one other one that people really always remember I did, it was about a bunch of sea lions up the coast from LA up as you're heading up to Ventura, up along the highway there. I think it's 101. A lot of the sea lions and such were in danger of getting hit by cars because they're right near the roadway there. So they ended up putting fences along there to protect them. My headline was the main headline was where blubber meets the road, and then I had a deck explaining what's going on. But I have some headline like that really they use the wordplay and they're really instantly memorable. My dad always used to like that one. He used to say, remember that blubber headline he did. So anyway, just what comes to mind, and if it works, it works, and if it fits, and you aim for both.
Because I couldn't stop myself, I went to the New York Post. And here's one. I wanted to get your judgment on this one. That um, it's configured for phone, so it's vertical. But in red, I guess would be the standalone word is curveball. And then the rest of that is company offers $5,000 to infamous Phillies fan for home run ball, but there's a catch. So the story I think goes on. So this is the guy who snatched the ball, I think, tried to give it to his son, but a woman, because the video is right below it, and she said, "Hey, you snatched that ball from this kid," and he gave it to him. Um, so I mean, what do you think?
Is
That
the
a good
main,
one?
is it a one word curveball? Is it
Yes, one word, and it's in red, and then the rest of the words are in black.
okay, and the rest of that deck sounded pretty good. It has the word a catch. It has some baseball imagery there. It sounded like a good deck. Could you read the deck again? So curveball's the main head. That's good.
Well,
And
there's curveball is just the one word in red. Then the only headline then that runs is the company offers $5,000 to infamous Phillies fan for home run ball dash, but there's a catch. So you got to know something or have some recollection of this case.
Yeah.
Um,
I remember.
the but and here this is their lead one today. Um, it's the big overline is dirty secrets. And
Oh,
then it has decomposing body found inside abandoned Tesla that belongs to popular singer.
hmm. Popular
No
thing.
word plays, but just
Yeah,
pretty straightforward, except for dirty secrets.
that's intriguing. People see that phrase and I think they'll be drawn in. Certain words can do that. They can, it has a salacious aspect or I'm not gonna say titillating aspect, but the word secrets, dirty secrets together, that people say, who's that? And who's involved with that? You know, it's kind of beckoning in that way. So just getting the right words that work together. Again, it's just nice when you have decks that can do the lifting to elaborate on a main head. Because if you have a main head without a deck, you got to make the main head do all the work. And sometimes if you have a clever idea, it's not enough because the clever idea sometimes will come in the deck more than the main head. And so having both is good, but you make do with what you get. But that's interesting. I haven't looked I don't look at the post daily. Sometimes I'll see some reference. They come up with clever stuff. I think working at the New York Post, it is kind of like a clever headline factory, but a lot of times they'll think it's kind of in your face. It's got that New York edge to it, and sometimes I'm not gonna say it's always tasteless or classless or anything, but it pushes the envelope way more than more conventional papers do.
Do you ever characterize events? And I ask because in this other New York Post one, it characterizes, it says bloodied female fan speaks out in new video after shocking Rams Texans viral brawl. And I guess I was of the belief that we should let the listeners, the viewers, the readers decide if something is shocking or not. But I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes even the word tragic might be overused, or maybe it's self-evident or apparent that it's tragic. It's almost like stating the obvious type of thing. And you're right, maybe let the reader decide if it's shocking. It may be to someone and person to something, maybe not shocking to someone else. You have to be aware of making subjective considerations on certain things, you know. You're not there to really impart your own view of it if you can help that. That's a good point. But again, usually that doesn't come up, I've noticed. Again, the word tragedy and tragic for me sometimes can kind of be um, blinking words that I don't want to make sure you're not getting too overly dramatic with something. And again, if something's self-evident, you know, skyscraper collapsing is obviously a tragedy, and just and again with certain stories that are poignant and sad and heartrending, like the Gaza stuff, Ukraine, and just the general chaos out there in the world these days. There's times when you're tempted to almost kind of want to put in your little bit of your own editorial view, but you really can't. But you can repeat something that really is factually 100% true. And if that 100% fact true thing involves somebody that you may or may not like, well, you know, again, we've had to be careful with this current administration and other things around the world that can have the political bent. You can't let your political or religious or whatever your viewpoints infiltrate the headline. You got to just go with what's there, the facts, and if you can make it lyrical and sing and all that, great. But you have to not let your own conceptions filter in if possible.
This one, I just shifted over to the Wall Street Journal, and this one seems willfully and consciously straightforward. It says, the headline is "See More Pages from Epstein's 50th Birthday Book." I mean, all kind of fun comes to mind to me with that, but I mean, with that story. But I'm wondering, particularly in these times, about the demands to be scrupulously neutral.
Yeah,
And
yeah. What's it say? Seeing, like SSEEING, seeing more. Say, read it again.
see, just SEE, more pages from Epstein's 50th birthday book.
Yeah, see, there's no puns there. It's not salacious. It's just saying there's the birthday book, but it's like an invitation to see something that can obviously people probably realize it's tawdry and not becoming. But so I think that headline works, and it's very straightforward, obviously. But it doesn't bother me, and I think it does enough. Do you agree? It's no, you know, that's a story too. You don't want to get too the facts of the matter in that story are kind of what's the word? You don't need to elaborate with any kind of cleverness on any of it. I mean, it almost speaks for itself. It will be intriguing to a lot of folks, this whole thing, what's going on. What will be further revealed, you know? It's kind of like this Pandora's box now. It's going to keep on giving. So I think that one works in its own straightforward way.
Last
Yeah.
question for at least for me, Dave, I promise.
Well,
But
that's all.
question leads, do they work? Here's another one from the journal. Why do rodents flourish? Question mark. A human-like thumb helps.
Oh, why do rodents flourish? A human-like thumb helps.
Yeah.
That's, you know, question marks or question mark heads that have question marks. They can be fine, but you don't want to overdo them. I remember one person, a colleague once saying, you know, don't ask the reader a question. Tell them, don't ask them. But yet, on some heads like that one, it's fine, especially when you have a follow-up saying the thumb thing. I mean, sometimes question mark heads are avoidable or inevitable, depends. And you don't want to overload punctuation in headlines too. Sometimes you will have a two-part headline in a main head that has either question mark or a colon or even a period, and then another sentence in it. We try to avoid two-sentence main headlines. Now in deck, sometimes the two sentences work okay, especially if it's a long deck, because sometimes a long deck, it's hard to keep going and going and going with just one thought, you know. It's like you almost run out of words, or how do you keep padding this? But colons, semicolons, question marks, exclamation points should be used sparingly. And when they're used correctly, they can be really effective. You don't want to overdo it, but sometimes it works. It just again depends. Does it work? Does this combination of punctuation work? But if you can just go forward with straight headlines without any punctuation, that's usually preferred. But that one there, the what you said about the rodents, the rats, that works. You just again case by case, you just kind of weigh it and see what works on a particular story.
So you want to answer a question head in the same headline or in the deck head.
Can do that, yeah. You can ask it and then answer it, or else further elaborate on the question. Like in that example, why does something something? Things they research, you're curious about why something's. You know, this depends on what you want to say, but again, question mark kids probably to be, I'm not gonna say avoided, but not used a lot. And especially you don't want more than one on a page. You don't want to have the whole section be asking the reader, what about this? What about this? Again, it's just a real case of does it work on that particular story? Case by case. That's all headlines by case, really.
I just gotta share this one with the group, but
Yeah.
it's still in the journal, and the overline is My Monday Morning. The headline is Alicia Silverstone is excited to see how she ages. And I darn near laughed out loud at that one. I thought, okay, um, the funny worked in that one, it seems to me, unless maybe you're Alicia.
But anything with celebrities could be, you know, kind of a clickbait thing. You're curious about. Um, and that what do you say? My Monday morning, is that a part of the headline or is that something else?
I think it's a running this sort of column, My Monday Morning.
Yeah,
The
got it.
and it speaks to the evolution of the journal that they would have celebrity news like that, because
Sure, sure.
back in the glory days of it, pre-Murdoch, it was strictly business, and they would never have a story like that.
Right, and what did it say? Alicia Silverstone's in about aging? Is that
Is
what it?
is Elisa Silverstone, hold on, is excited to see how she ages.
Oh,
Well,
yeah. People say, well, God, it's been how many years since she was in was it Clueless? She was in a big movie. She got instantly famous, and then I think she may have dropped off the radar a bit. She's older now, so yeah. I mean, I think I saw a picture of her recently. She does look older. We all are older, but so that's intriguing. Anytime with celebrities doing whatever, it can be intriguing. And of course, you know, Trump attacked Tom Cruise recently, and you go, okay, there's him. And then Springsteen, he recently attacked Trump. So any celebrity interaction or anything having to do with them, usually people want to check it out, especially ones who are more starstruck. But
I have no personal interest in this, but the headline is such that it makes me want to read it just to find out
yeah,
what she's meaning.
good when a headline can draw you into something you otherwise see. I'm like you, I'm not into celebrity stuff, but there's something that's a headline that might draw you in. It can be interesting to read. So, yeah. Anyway. Well, how much time do we have? I'm good on time. I don't work today. I have to, yeah, we'll have a meeting at the paper later on because we've been short-staffed and had some tight deadline days, so, but I'm good right now, so, well, are we good on time?
Yeah, well, we're I don't want to keep everybody too long. This is usually like a working lunch, so if anybody needs to hop off. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Joseph, if you've got the closing remarks, would you mind hopping back on?
Yes, yeah, just join us next for our next virtual event in the Journalist Development Series coming up next month. Just go to the Military Veterans and Journalism website, events tab. It'll keep you updated on everything that's coming up.
Excellent. And thank you so much, David. This was very enlightening.
Oh, good, it's my pleasure. I hope I answered some questions or at least, um, sated some curiosity or some, so. Again, it's been fun. It's a gift I have and I'm thankful for it, and if you're doing headlines, just try to remember to make sure it's accurate and not be and have taste and clarity and sensitivity, but also try to nail the sweet spot if you can. If there's some good way you can render it. Sometimes you need a straight headline. Sometimes you can have more fun. The ones that have the wordplay often are lighter ones, like involving a cool animal story or just, it just depends on the story. Human interest ones often lend themselves. And they don't have to have puns or wordplay. Sometimes they just have lyrical words that have good rhythm or I don't want to say pretty words, but just like the one I did with the embers and timbers, ones that have a nice flow together. So it's an inexact art science, but it's also it's fun to do, and when it works, and so be it. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that you're like open to tips. So if anybody comes up with any tips for, the absolute headline expert here, he left his email with us here. I dropped it in the chat.
Okay,
But other than that, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, David, for your time. And
really fun. Thank you, and thanks. Good seeing Jeff. I've known him since 1980 or
Oh.
79. Never, long time, long time. And back then at the Daily Breeze, Jeff, I had good headlines, but I look back on them now and they're good still. But I go, I don't know if I would have done that now. But they were fine.
I don't think it was an emerging art and science as it is now, but yeah, we were, of course, only teenagers back in those days.
We had more hair and darker hair. So anyway.
and David, if you would have come up with a headline for this session, what would it be?
Journalists put their heads together to learn about the craft.
Love it.
That just came right off the top of the head. A gift I have. I mean, just to be able to just instantly get something. It may not be the right one right off the bat, but yeah. So anyway,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Everybody have a great day.
okay, I guess we're out. Okay, thank you. And Jeff, I'll talk to you later, man.
Okay, all right.
How about you guys? Thank you.